imagine it is the year 2026.
Right.
You sit down at your desk on a Monday morning, to analyze this massive, complicated quarterly financial report.
Oh, it could kind of report that usually ruins your whole week.
Exactly. Historically, this is a task that takes you, or really any highly trained professional, an entire week of just intense focus.
Right.
But today, before you've even taken the first sip of your morning coffee, the artificial intelligence software on your computer has not only finished the entire analysis,
Wow.
but it has also emailed a flawless, beautifully written summary directly to your manager.
Yeah.
So if your entire career, your entire professional identity is built on processing data and writing reports, what exactly are you getting paid for now?
I mean, that is the uncomfortable reality staring us right in the face.
Mm-hmm.
We've spent, really the last century building a corporate world that rewards humans for acting like highly efficient machines. Right. We memorized formulas, we learned to process information quickly, and we took pride in our speed. But the moment an actual machine can do it, a million times faster,
the foundation just collapses.
Exactly. The entire foundation of our professional value collapses.
Which brings us to the core of today's deep dive. Welcome, everyone. We are looking at a really fascinating piece of source material from the Jasmine Podcast.
Yeah, specifically an excerpt titled Week 2, AI-Proof Your Career.
Right. And if you caught our previous discussion on her work, we explored the idea of embracing our personal flaws. But today, the focus shifts to the environment where most of us spend the majority of our waking hours, which is the workplace.
Yeah, the office. And our mission today is really twofold, especially for those of you listening who are working on your professional English.
Right, our language learners out there.
Exactly. First, we're going to explore the practical strategy the source provides to survive and thrive alongside this incredibly powerful technology.
And second,
because navigating this new landscape requires a very specific way of communicating, we are going to master the English vocabulary you need to actually implement this strategy.
I love that. We really want to take our time today, right? We're going to keep the pace comfortable, keep the language clear so that you can feel completely confident using these concepts and phrases in your own daily professional life.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right in because the source material does not sugarcoat the situation at all. It describes the 2026 workplace with 3 very specific verbs regarding AI. It says AI can code, analyze, and report better than most of us.
Okay.
And for anyone who has spent years in a university getting a degree just to prove they can analyze data, reading that sentence is genuinely scary.
Well, and the fear makes perfect sense when you look at the mechanism of how we used to define success,
How so?
We built entire career ladders based on what we call hard skills. And for our listeners, hard skills are basically technical measurable abilities.
Like accounting.
Right. Accounting, software engineering, statistical analysis, legal research. You go to school, you acquire the hard skill, and you trade that skill for a salary.
And the faster you do it, the better.
Exactly. The faster and more accurately you execute that hard skill, the higher you climb in the company.
But trying to compete on hard skills today feels like trying to outrun a high-speed bullet train on foot.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. You can put on your best running shoes, you can train for months, and you can sprint down the train tracks as hard as you possibly can, but you cannot beat the train.
No.
It is built for a velocity you simply cannot reach. The underlying mechanism of an AI, processing millions of data points simultaneously without fatigue, without needing a lunch break.
Without getting distracted by social media.
Exactly. It makes human effort in those specific areas look completely obsolete.
Which forces a massive psychological shift. If you step off the train tracks, you stop trying to compete on speed and data processing, where do you go?
Right.
This is where the concept of AI-proofing your career comes in. The source argues that the defense against becoming obsolete is not to work harder or faster.
So what is it?
The defense is to work more humanly.
Okay, I want to push back on this idea of working more humanly for a second because it sounds a bit abstract.
Sure.
It sounds like something you'd read on a motivational poster in a break room. In a cutthroat corporate environment where executives are just looking to save money by replacing entire departments with software, what does working humanly actually look like in practice?
Okay, to understand that, we have to look at the boundaries of artificial intelligence. We have to understand how the machine actually works. And AI, specifically the large language models we use today, operates on probabilistic data processing.
Okay, wait, let's slow down. Probabilistic data processing. That sounds like big vocabulary.
Fair point. Basically, it predicts the next most likely word in a sequence based on massive amounts of training data. It is a brilliant mimic. It copies well.
Got it.
It can process the data of a difficult situation,
Right.
but it cannot experience it.
I see. Let's use a tangible example from the source text then. The text points out that while AI can process data, it absolutely cannot navigate a difficult conversation with a crying colleague.
Right. Think about the complexity of that exact scenario. You're in the office. A coworker receives devastating personal news. Or perhaps the stress of a failing project finally breaks them and they begin to cry at their desk.
Yeah.
And AI is entirely useless here. It has no biological context for emotional pain. It doesn't understand the vulnerability of crying in a professional setting.
Yeah, like if you fed the audio of that crying colleague into an AI, it might correctly label the audio as distress.
Right.
It might even generate a script for you to read saying, I am sorry you are experiencing distress.
But reading a robot script is terrible in that situation.
Exactly. Delivering a generated script is not what the moment requires at all. The moment requires someone to pull up a chair, soften their voice, perhaps offer a glass of water, and just sit in the discomfort of that shared human vulnerability.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The human ability to recognize emotional pain, to adjust our physical posture, to, modulate our tone of voice, and to offer genuine comfort is infinitely complex. We call this empathy.
Empathy. That's a great word for our listeners to note.
Yeah, empathy is that deeply human ability to feel the weight of someone else's sadness or frustration, even just a little bit, and respond with care. A machine cannot offer empathy because it has nothing to lose and nothing to feel.
Right. And the source gives another fantastic example of this limitation. It says AI cannot feel the room during a tense negotiation.
Oh, negotiations are a perfect example.
Yeah, I've been in contract negotiations where the air gets so thick with tension you feel like you can't breathe. Two companies are arguing over millions of dollars. Now, the AI can analyze every single number in the contract instantly.
Yeah.
It can tell you the mathematical probability of a specific clause causing financial ruin, but it is entirely blind to the actual negotiation happening between the human beings.
Because the real negotiation is rarely just about the numbers. It's about ego. It's about fear. It's about trust. During a tense negotiation, the most important information is not written on the paper.
What is it then?
The most important information is the subtle signs of human physiology. It's the fact that the client across the table just crossed their arms. It's the slight change in their breathing. It's the prolonged silence before they answer a question.
Ah, I see. A human brain processes all of those microsignals simultaneously to realize, oh, they're feeling insecure about this point. I need to reassure them before we move forward.
Yes. The machine only sees the transcript of the words spoken. It misses the music beneath the words.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And this contrast between human intuition and machine processing leads to a really fascinating observation in the source text regarding language itself. The text states that in 2026, the most valuable professional English is no longer about using big words or business jargon.
Okay, this feels like a huge paradigm shift, especially for people who have spent years studying business English.
Oh, absolutely. We are culturally conditioned to believe that sounding professional means using incredibly complex vocabulary. We memorize lists of jargon, words like synergy, optimize, paradigm shift, or bandwidth.
Right, all those buzzwords.
Yeah, we use these words as a shield to prove we belong in the corporate environment. So why is the source telling us to abandon this strategy?
Well, because we have to look at what jargon actually is. Jargon is essentially a highly structured, rigid code. It's a set of predictable phrases used to communicate standard business concepts. And what did we establish that AI is best at?
Processing predictable code.
Precisely. Processing predictable code. And AI can instantly generate a perfectly formatted email using words like synergistic alignment and optimized deliverables.
Yeah.
If your primary communication strategy relies on using complex, cold business vocabulary to sound impressive, you simply sound like a slightly slower version of the AI. You are stripping the humanity out of your voice.
You're actively trying to sound like the bullet train.
Yes. And today, sounding like a machine is no longer impressive because actual machines do it perfectly and for free.
That makes a lot of sense.
This is why the source emphasizes that the new most valuable professional English is rooted in something entirely different. It's rooted in cultural intelligence and empathy. The text uses this really beautiful, defining phrase. It says, it's about how you lead with your heart, not just your head.
The head represents the logic, the calculations, the output. The AI has the head covered.
Right.
The heart represents the connection, the intuition, the warmth. The source groups all of these human-focused abilities under the umbrella term soft skills. Soft skills are the new hard currency of the workplace.
You know, we used to think of soft skills, things like patience, active listening, or emotional regulation, as nice bonuses.
Yeah, like a nice to have.
Exactly. If you were a great coder and you also happen to be nice, that was great. But today, the coding is automated. The nice bonus is now the core requirement. Your soft skills are your career armor.
But having a soft skill internally and demonstrating it externally are two very different things.
That's true.
You might feel deep empathy for your team, but if you cannot communicate that empathy clearly, it doesn't help anyone. We need the right vocabulary. And the source text is incredibly practical here. It provides 3 specific, vital English phrases that capture these soft skills in action.
Let's slow down and thoroughly examine these 3 phrases, because understanding not just what they mean in a dictionary, but how they function in the complex psychology of an office is essential for anyone trying to navigate this new landscape.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's look at the first phrase. The first phrase is to read the room.
To read the room. Let's make sure our listeners get that. To read the room. The text defines reading the room as the ability to understand the emotions and thoughts of the people in a room.
Right.
I have always loved the verb choice here. We read books, we read data, we read screens. But here, the room itself is the text.
And just like a complex novel, a room full of people has subtext. It has hidden meanings. Think about the mechanics of walking into a meeting room. Before anyone even says a single word of greeting, a massive amount of information is already available to you if you know how to read it.
It's like turning on an invisible emotional radar. You walk in and you scan the environment. Where are people sitting? Is the manager sitting at the head of the table, or did they choose to sit on the side trying to appear more collaborative?
Are people chatting quietly with each other? Or is everyone staring silently at their phones?
Right. Let's imagine a concrete scenario where reading the room is the difference between success and disaster.
Okay.
Imagine your company just lost a major client. The atmosphere in the office all morning has been heavy, quiet, and anxious. People are worried about layoffs. You walk into the weekly team meeting. If you fail to read the room, you might walk in with a huge smile, loudly complain about the traffic on your commute, and make a sarcastic joke about how boring the meeting is going to be.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you would instantly alienate everyone. You would look incredibly foolish, and worse, you would look unsafe. People would realize they cannot trust you to handle sensitive situations.
Exactly. You processed your own internal data like, I want to tell a joke. But you completely failed to process the external human data.
Right. Now, imagine a colleague who successfully reads the room. They walk into that same anxious meeting. They sense the heavy silence. They see the lowered shoulders and the lack of eye contact. Their emotional radar detects the fear.
So they adjust their behavior. They speak softly. They acknowledge the reality. They might simply say, I know it has been a really tough morning for everyone. They validate the emotional state of the group before trying to discuss any business.
And that validation creates a profound impact. It lowers the collective stress level. It builds trust. And AI cannot do this. I mean, camera in the corner of the room running facial recognition software might be able to calculate that 80% of the faces are showing distress markers.
Yeah.
But the AI does not feel the social obligation to offer comfort. It doesn't understand the shared vulnerability of employment insecurity. Reading the room is a dynamic, constant translation of human emotion, and it is entirely exclusive to us.
So if I'm a learner listening right now, how do I actually use this phrase, like in a sentence?
Oh, good question. You could say, I tried to read the room before I pitched my new idea.
I tried to read the room before I pitched my new idea. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That brings us to the second phrase from the source text, which takes this idea of observing the room and pushes it one step deeper. The phrase is interpersonal dynamics.
Interpersonal dynamics. The source defines this as the way people interact and communicate with each other in a group. To make this accessible, let's break the term down. Interpersonal simply means between people, is the space connecting us. But the crucial word is dynamics.
Dynamics implies motion. It implies a system of forces that is constantly shifting and changing. A dynamic is never static.
That is the perfect way to look at it. If you look at a company's official organizational chart, it is static. It's a rigid hierarchy of boxes and lines. The CEO is at the top. The managers are in the middle, the employees are at the bottom,
Right.
and AI can memorize that chart in a millisecond. It assumes that power and communication flow exactly along those straight lines.
But anyone who has ever worked in an office knows the official chart is almost a fiction. The real power, the real communication, flows through the invisible web of interpersonal dynamics.
Let's explore how that invisible web actually works. Think about a cross-departmental project team. On paper, the project manager is the leader. But if you observe the interpersonal dynamics, you might realize that the quiet engineer sitting in the corner is actually the person everyone respects the most.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Right. When a difficult technical problem arises, the project manager might formally ask for solutions, but everyone subtly looks at the quiet engineer to see their reaction before speaking.
So the dynamic is that the official authority belongs to the manager, but the actual influence belongs to the engineer.
Exactly.
Or think about historical dynamics between departments. Like sales and marketing might have an interpersonal dynamic of constant low-level competition. If you try to launch a new initiative without understanding that historical friction, your project will fail, and you won't even know why.
Because you ignored the invisible forces. Understanding interpersonal dynamics is what the source refers to as cultural intelligence. It's the ability to navigate the unwritten rules, the historical grudges, the unspoken alliances, and the genuine friendships that actually keep a company running.
And AI only sees the data points. Like employee A sent an email to employee B.
Right.
It does not know that employee A and employee B had a terrible argument at the holiday party 3 years ago, and every email they send each other is full of passive-aggressive subtext. AI cannot read subtext. It only reads text.
Which is why relying on AI to manage human teams is so dangerous, and why human managers who understand these dynamics are irreplaceable. If you know that two team members have a brilliant creative dynamic but a terrible organizational dynamic, you structure their work to maximize their brainstorming while separating their logistical tasks. You're harmonizing the human element.
And how would our listeners use this phrase in a sentence?
You might say, she is great at managing the interpersonal dynamics of the team.
She is great at managing the interpersonal dynamics of the team. Perfect. But even with the best harmonization, when you put flawed, emotional humans in a high-stress environment, friction is inevitable. Which leads us to the third and arguably most important phrase provided by the source: to navigate conflict.
To navigate conflict. The text defines this as finding a way through a disagreement successfully. But the choice of the word navigate is profound here. It reveals an entirely new philosophy about how we should handle problems at work.
I'm so glad you pointed out the verb. We are so conditioned by competitive business culture to use the language of war.
We really are.
We talk about fighting a lawsuit or attacking a problem or winning an argument, but the source deliberately rejects that. It does not tell us to win a conflict.
Because winning implies a loser. If you use your sharp intellect and your hard skills to utterly defeat a colleague in a meeting, if you prove them completely wrong and make them look foolish, you might win the argument. But you've destroyed the interpersonal dynamic.
Yeah.
That colleague will never trust you again. They will quietly sabotage your next project. You won an argument, but you damage the ecosystem.
The source also does not tell us to avoid conflict.
Avoidance is equally destructive. If you sense tension, but you are too afraid to address it, the conflict doesn't disappear, it goes underground. It turns into gossip, resentment, and a toxic work environment. The problem festers because no one has the courage to bring it into the light.
So we cannot fight and we cannot hide. We must navigate. When I hear the word navigate, I immediately think of a ship trying to cross a dangerous stretch of ocean during a storm.
That analogy perfectly captures the psychological reality of workplace conflict. A disagreement is a storm. The waves are high, people are emotional, the wind is howling, and there is a real danger of the ship sinking, which in this case means the project failing or the relationship breaking permanently.
When you navigate a ship through a storm, you don't attack the waves. You can't fight the ocean. You also can't just drop anchor and hide. You have to take the wheel. You look at the compass, you read the wind, you make constant, subtle adjustments, and you guide the ship safely to calmer waters.
Translating that to the office, navigating conflict means acting as the guide. When two colleagues are furiously disagreeing about a project timeline, a person with strong soft skills steps in, not to judge who is mathematically correct, but to de-escalate the emotional storm. They listen actively. They validate both perspectives.
What would they say?
They might say, I hear that you are deeply concerned about missing the deadline, and I also hear that you are worried about sacrificing the quality of the work. Both are valid concerns. How do we build a bridge between the two?
Yeah, they use human warmth to lower the temperature of the room. They find the compromise that allows both sides to save face and walk away feeling respected.
Let's compare this to the machine alternative. If you give an AI system two conflicting sets of rules or parameters, what happens?
It crashes, or it throws a fatal error code. Error, logic conflict cannot be resolved.
Or it simply defaults to whichever rule has the higher numerical priority, completely ignoring the context of the discarded rule. It acts with ruthless, cold efficiency. But human collaboration cannot survive ruthless efficiency. We have to come back the next day and work together again. Navigating conflict is the act of repairing the social fabric so that collaboration remains possible tomorrow.
And a sentence example for our learners.
It is important to know how to navigate conflict during a stressful project.
It is important to know how to navigate conflict during a stressful project. Excellent. Let's pause and summarize these three phrases because they really form the blueprint for this new professional language. First, we have to read the room, the ability to sense the emotional atmosphere and adjust your behavior accordingly.
Right.
Second, interpersonal dynamics, the complex, shifting web of relationships and unwritten rules that actually govern how work gets done. And third, to navigate conflict, the skill of guiding a disagreement through emotional storms toward a resolution that preserves dignity and trust.
If you can master those three concepts, you are no longer competing with the machine. You have stepped completely off the train tracks. You are operating in a dimension the AI cannot even perceive.
Which brings us to a massive fundamental shift in how we think about our careers. This is where the source material delivers its most challenging and liberating idea. The text states, your value isn't your output, it's your impact on the people around you.
I want to spend significant time unpacking the difference between those two words, output and impact, because this is the crux of the entire AI-proofing strategy. Moving from an output mindset to an impact mindset requires unlearning decades of industrial age programming.
The industrial age conditioned us to worship output. Output is volume, it's quantity, it's the number of widgets produced on the assembly line. In the modern office, output is the number of emails you answered, the lines of code you wrote, the number of sales calls you made, the pages of reports you generated. Output is highly visible and incredibly easy to measure.
And because it's easy to measure, management loves it. It's comfortable. You can put output on a spreadsheet and track it over time. But as we established in the beginning, output is exactly what AI does better than us. The AI can write 10,000 emails while you were typing your first sentence. If you stake your career survival on your output, you are fighting a losing battle.
You know, I can hear people listening to this right now feeling a sense of panic or at least intense skepticism.
Why is that?
Because they might be thinking, well, this sounds beautiful on a deep dive, but my boss doesn't care about my impact. My boss gives me a performance review based entirely on my output quotas. If I stop focusing on output, I will get fired long before 2026. How do we bridge the gap between this idealistic impact mindset and the harsh reality of current corporate structures?
That is the most important question we can ask because we are in a chaotic transition period. The corporate structures are lagging behind the technological reality. But the shift is already happening. Yes, your boss demands output today. But what happens when the company buys the enterprise AI software next year and suddenly your boss's boss realizes they don't need a team of 20 people generating reports anymore?
Right. When the output is commoditized and practically free, the only variable left is how the team functions together.
Exactly. And that is where impact becomes your lifeline. Let's define impact clearly. Impact is the unmeasurable resonance of your humanity. It is how you affect the psychological and emotional capacity of the people around you.
It's the ripple effect of your presence.
Yes. Let's look at a concrete comparison. Employee A is an output machine. They keep their head down, they don't talk to anyone, they ignore interpersonal dynamics, but they produce 100 reports a week.
Okay.
Employee B only produces 50 reports a week. But Employee B checks in on struggling colleagues. Employee B reads the room during stressful meetings and cracks a perfectly timed, gentle joke to relieve the tension. Employee B successfully navigates a conflict between two senior developers, preventing them from quitting.
The traditional spreadsheet says employee A is twice as valuable, but the reality of the ecosystem tells a different story.
Because Employee B's impact, their human warmth, actually enabled the rest of the team to function. By preventing those developers from quitting, Employee B saved the company hundreds of thousands of dollars in turnover and lost institutional knowledge. By relieving the tension in the room, they allowed the creative team to think more clearly. Employee B's direct output was lower, but their human impact acted as a multiplier for the entire department's success.
And as AI takes over the baseline output, meaning soon, everyone's software will be generating 1,000 reports a week automatically. Employee A becomes entirely redundant. The machine replaces them instantly. But employee B, you cannot automate the person who holds the team psychology together. They are, as the source said at the very beginning, irreplaceable.
This is what the source means when it offers its final, incredibly encouraging piece of advice. Don't compete with the machine's speed. Lean into your human warmth.
I find the phrase lean into so powerful here. It doesn't just mean to accept something passively. To lean into something means to put your weight behind it, to embrace it actively and confidently.
We've spent so much energy trying to hide our humanity at work. We try to be perfectly logical, emotionless professionals. We try to hide our flaws. But the Jasmine Podcast reminds us that our flaws, our emotions, our very messy humanity is the core of our value. Machines are perfect, cold, and flawless. Humans are warm, reactive, and empathetic. We don't have to become more like machines to survive the AI revolution.
Right.
We actually have permission and a professional imperative to become more deeply human.
That is a profound reframing of the future. It takes the narrative of AI is coming to destroy our jobs and flips it. Yes, AI is coming to destroy the robotic parts of our jobs, but it is leaving us the space to do the things only we can do.
We have covered immense psychological and linguistic territory today. Let's synthesize the core insights. The 2026 workplace is rapidly automating the hard skills of data processing and analysis. To AI-proof your career, you must abandon the race for speed and output. You must drop the complex artificial business jargon because machines speak it better than you ever will. Your survival depends on cultivating soft skills, empathy, and cultural intelligence. You must learn to read the room, master the unseen interpersonal dynamics, and confidently navigate human conflict. Your ultimate value is no longer what you produce, but how your human warmth impacts the people around you.
It is a shift from the head to the heart. And the source material ends with a direct call to action, a question from Jasmine herself that we want to pass on to you, our listener. As you go about your day, whether you are heading into an office or logging on to a virtual meeting, ask yourself, what is one soft skill you are proud of?
Take that question seriously. Do people naturally come to you when they are stressed? Are you the person who can explain a difficult concept without making the other person feel foolish? Are you the one who remembers birthdays and checks in on people? Do not dismiss those traits as just being nice. Those traits are your professional superpower. They are the foundation of your future career.
I know my soft skill definitely isn't generating spreadsheets, but I like to think I am pretty good at reading the room and knowing when someone just needs to be heard.
And that skill will outlast any software update. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. Something provocative to explore on your own that builds on everything we have discussed, though it wasn't explicitly mentioned in the source material.
Oh, I love a good thought experiment. Where are we taking this?
We have focused entirely on the internal shifts, our vocabulary, our mindset, our skills. But think about the physical architecture of the workplace itself. For the last 50 years, corporate offices were designed exclusively for output. We built vast floors of silent cubicles and open-plan desks designed to pack as many humans as possible into a room to stare at screens and process data.
The architecture literally treated us like processors on a motherboard.
Exactly. But if our core professional value is no longer silent, individual output, well, if our primary value is now our human warmth, our ability to read the room, and our capacity to navigate interpersonal dynamics, how must the physical design of the office change?
Oh, that is fascinating. If we are not going to the office to stare at screens because the AI is doing the screen work, why are we going to the office at all?
We are going there to connect. So what does an office designed for connection look like? Do we tear down the cubicles entirely? Will the workplace of the future look less like a factory for data processing and more like a giant, comfortable living room or a series of cozy coffee shops? Will acoustic design focus not on deadening the sound of typing, but on enhancing the warmth of human conversation?
If impact is our goal, the environment has to facilitate that impact. It is a brilliant thing to imagine the next time you walk into a traditional office building. Look at the desks and ask yourself what they were really built for.
The physical spaces will eventually catch up to the technological reality, but your mindset can change today.
Remember, you do not need to be a machine. Let the AI handle the data. You have the far more important job of handling the humanity. Lean into your warmth. We will see you on the next deep dive.